Hey everyone, it's Khara CrossFit Brindle. Welcome back to the channel. Ashley's with us again. Hey Ashley.
Hello.
Ashley is one of the people I go to most to be like, hey, there's this video we need to create. Are you game for it? So I'm just very grateful that you're always game for the videos that we put together. As the time of this recording, we have one out that's getting a lot of traction because it illuminated some things that needed to be illuminated. So always grateful that you're willing to be part of that conversation. This recording is going to be an intake. This was requested of one of my students, but also I think the community at large as to how to make an intake flow, how to make it conversational, how to be friendly, how to build rapport. My students every year get shocked when they see a percentage of people who never come back after an intake and they panic, going, oh my gosh, well, why? Why aren't people coming back after an intake? So I'm going to demonstrate a couple things. We'll call it out at the end, the things that I think keep people engaged and coming back for their first session. But for the purpose of this role play, Ashley's going to pick something pretty benign in the sense of like, we're not going deep, dark trauma. This is not a mandated client. This is someone who's here voluntarily. So I just wanted to start the video with those disclaimers before we jump in. Anything you would add, Ashley, before we go into
I'm
character, as
ready.
you will?
Nope.
Okay. Sounds good. Man, like I'm going to try not to get nervous now that we're doing this on a video. Um, Fair enough. Hey, Ashley, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I know we had our consult call where we got to talk a little bit about what you're looking for. And I had mentioned that this first meeting is really heavy on paperwork. I'm going to try and make it as painless as possible for you, knowing that future sessions will truly look like that therapeutic work that you're craving. But today we're going to go over a few things. I have a bunch of questions for you. I definitely want to leave some space for you to ask me some questions and kind of go from there. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Awesome. Did you have any questions about the paperwork I already sent you when it came to disclosure, limits of confidentiality, the things you reviewed online?
Seems all pretty standard and straightforward.
Yeah. And I know you've had therapy before, so hopefully it looked a little familiar that you've had those
Yeah.
forms in the past. So that's
Sure.
always reassuring when they're like, no questions. But if there were questions, you're always allowed to ask them.
Okay.
Okay. So we usually start off with the question of what's bringing you to therapy today? What would you say to that question?
I think just like general stress. I'm really overwhelmed. I'm in school. I had a recent breakup, and I'm just having trouble kind of with my day-to-day life, I guess.
Yeah. So I want you to know, Ashley, I'm going to be taking some notes that'll actually come to
Okay.
you after our meeting today. So when I'm looking down, that's what I'm doing, especially on telehealth. I think it's important for you to know that. I'm hearing stress, I'm hearing overwhelm. Tell me what that looks like in your body, your routines, with the breakup and with school.
Um, wow, in my body, I guess I've never considered that.
Ooh.
But in terms of like my thoughts and my feelings, I just feel a little stuck, and a little lost. And I have thoughts like, kind of when will this be over? Just like the
Mm,
feeling of overwhelmedness. Like am I ever gonna feel relaxed again? Am I ever gonna find a partner that's right for me? School seems like it's never ending. I've been in school
mm.
forever, and I'm just kind of like burnt out and done with that. So, but in my body, I don't know. Maybe that's something we'll have to revisit.
Yeah, that's
I
totally
don't
normal that people tend to live here when they're, especially
know.
when I'm asking these questions, they're like, I can intellectualize this, but maybe there is
Mhm.
something in the body, especially as I heard you say the word overwhelm a couple times. And there might be some muscle tension or something that's attached to that, which we absolutely
Mhm.
can get into as we get to know each other better.
Okay.
Do you have a history of anxiety, depression, anything like that that I should be aware of?
I I don't know how to answer that because I would say no, but I
Ooh,
think growing up and even compared to like my friend group now and other students, I can see that I'm very like I don't want to say neurotic, but I'm very
mm,
like aware of I like things done a certain way and I like to be in control. And when I
mm-hmm,
feel like things are falling apart, I kind of have this feeling of like, okay, am I breathing? And then I just worry, like,
yeah.
what if this happens? What if this happens? And then I'm planning for that and planning for that and planning for that. Um, so is that anxiety?
It's possible. I mean, this is truly you defining it based on you know yourself the best.
Mhm.
From what you just shared there, Ashley, I'm wondering if there's some catastrophizing. Have you ever had that term? Have you ever come across that term or like heard that from a previous therapist? That
Is
whole
that like
everything is
making a
awful.
mountain out of a molehill? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mm,
Uh-huh. So I was kind of hearing that in what you just shared of like I get overwhelmed and then everything kind of spirals out and gets kind of deep and dark and heavy. Is
yeah.
that accurate to put it that way as I'm getting to know you?
Yeah, I like the word you use, spiral, of like, okay, this
Hmm.
one thing happens and I'm just like,
Yeah,
um, yeah.
gotcha. Okay. How long do you think you've had those kinds of experiences, like spiraling? Is this something that's in adulthood? Is this something you had when you were a kid? What's your earliest memory of spiraling like that?
I would say it's always been there. Like I grew up really wanting to be a straight A student. I grew up doing gymnastics, and so there were like looking back, I noticed all this kind of pressure really on myself probably of like to be perfect and to perform.
Hmm.
And then I know you asked about depression too, and I don't like I've never felt depressed, I've never felt sad, like I don't even know what that would look or feel like.
Gotcha. That's helpful as I'm getting to know you, just kind of get a sense of what it looks like to exist in your body, in your mind, as you go and function from day to day. I know when we connected on the call for the free consult, you're like, hey, I have some pressure, perfectionism stuff going on, which you know
Mhm.
is one of my specialties. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I mean, it sounds like this has, you know, been a lot for you, and I'm excited to get to know you better because I think there's some things we can do
Mhm.
about that. So even as
Great.
I'm asking you these heavy questions, I'm already going, yeah, that tracks, and I've got
Mm.
ideas for you. So hopefully that
Okay.
feels a little lighter as
Yes,
we're
it does.
talking.
It does for sure.
On that lighter note, I kind of flip the script sometimes. So if we started with like the heavy, and now I'm asking you a question about your strengths. So
Mhm.
what's going well in your life right now?
I would say I have a pretty solid group of friends. I love being in school. I'm very excited at the prospect of being a therapist one day. Um, I love to read and I'm generally pretty active. I'm pretty outgoing. I'm not scared of like meeting new people or putting myself out there.
Nice.
So I think all of those things are going quite well. School is
Mhm.
going really well, but it might be because of the perfectionism rather than like a healthy
Yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah. That's fair. We can look into that a little bit more, especially when we think of like work-life harmony and what that looks like for
Mhm.
someone who thrives on being productive, which is what I'm getting from you, is like you like
Yeah.
to do things. You don't like to be
Mhm.
idle. You're active, you're in motion. So those are the people I tend to attract in therapy. And all of that is totally part of your coping skills and what works for you. Um, who do you go to for those difficult times in your life? I was hearing friends, that you're social. Are there any particular people in your support network you want to call out?
Yeah, I have a couple good friends from college. So I went to college back east and all of my friends stayed back there. I was the only one to like do something different. And so when I
Hmm,
moved to Denver, I didn't know anybody. And so I have a couple friends from college that I speak to regularly. And then I have a couple classmates that I've become, relatively close with that I can lean on especially with school stuff or school stress.
nice. Okay. That sounds good. Are you currently in a relationship right now?
Well, I recently broke up with my boyfriend,
That's right.
and that was like the event that it was like, okay, I'm ready to see a therapist again, because I kind of want to process that, but I also recognize like some of my anxiety might have led to some patterns in that relationship that
Hmm,
I didn't like or don't want to repeat. So yeah, not currently in a relationship.
okay. Gotcha. So I'm also kind of hearing a natural next question, which is in a sentence, what you're hoping to gain from therapy. You want to try that on and say, here are all the things we've talked about so far. Here's the thing I might be wanting to work on. What would you say to that?
The thing I want to work on the most is like how to be my healthiest self.
Mhm.
And I think I go, 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 I do, 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 and like surface level and from the outside in, I look pretty functional and happy and successful. But I'm just holding stress. And so
Yeah.
like something needs to change. And I don't know what that is, I don't think, but I know the stress is showing up in different areas of my life and the anxiety probably too.
Mhm.
So I guess in a sentence, like I'm open to growing, while kind of like holding on to things that serve me and really trying to change patterns that don't serve me anymore.
Yeah. What I wrote down for you, Ashley, is I want to be my healthiest self because I really liked
I
that
love that.
sentence for you.
Hmm.
I liked the word healthy rather than like best or optimal or
Hmm.
something like that, which perfectionism tends to say things like that
Yeah.
to us. So healthiest seems like a nice, well-rounded goal for you, and still very measurable. So I liked that and wanted to reflect that back to you. Okay, how are we doing so far? Just checking in on how you're feeling with
Good.
the pace. Okay,
Mhm.
want to make sure. Awesome. So the next set of questions is really about your family history. Of anything I ask you, you're allowed to be like, no, thank you. I don't want to go there. Or you can just like move on. That's always an option. I know that's a lot of questions for someone your first
Yeah.
meeting. So
It's okay.
let me know if any of them don't land well. When it comes to your childhood, I know you said you grew up back east. Is that somewhere where you were born and raised at a particular state? Did you move around a lot? What did that look like?
So I went to college back east. I
Oh,
grew
college
up
back
on the
east.
West Coast. Yeah. I've lived in like six or seven different states. My parents split and both moved around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't really have like a home. I would say Colorado's my home. Like this is where
Okay.
I've chosen post college. And it's hard for me to picture staying here because I've never been in one place for a long period of time. Um, but yeah, I guess like I grew up all over the place, you could say.
Okay. Gotcha. Do you have siblings? I know you mentioned your parents and them moving around a lot and breaking up. Any siblings?
Yeah, I'm the oldest of eight.
Okay. How close or not close are you to each of your siblings?
In age or in relationship?
Both.
Okay. Well, my brother is 3 years younger and we're best friends,
Oh,
really close. My next sibling, we're 6 years apart. And she and I mean, I guess you could say we're close. We're in like very different phases in life.
sure.
And then my next sibling, me and her are 11 years apart. And kind of same thing. Like I would love to have a relationship with her. It's just hard to kind of picture what that would look like into like
Mm,
as she goes into adulthood.
sure.
Um, and then the next one is 16 years younger, and then my mom has twins that are 16 years younger, and then the last one is like, oh God, 20 years younger. Just like me, how big that age difference is.
Yeah, yeah. So, from what you shared, it makes sense that you'd be closest to the person closest in age to you because it sounds like you actually like had more of a upbringing together versus the siblings that are 16, 20 years younger than you might not have looked that way as you've been out on
Yeah.
your own as an adult.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha. So you've been in Colorado. How long have you been here?
Just since grad school started, and I'm in my second year, so a couple summers ago.
Okay. And it sounds like you really like it. You're not quite sure what that's going to look like for the future, but right now you're enjoying Colorado.
Yep. Hmm.
Awesome. You said you're studying to be a therapist. So I'm putting that down as your level of education.
Yep.
Anything that I know you had shared when we started our meeting today that you're feeling a little burnt out in school, but you're also really enjoying school. So is that kind of moving between the two for you based on the semester, the content? What's that
I would
about?
say content for sure. I really want to dive into like the therapy world and
Hmm.
the classes that are more like theory or policy or, electives that I might not use. I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
I don't need this. I'm ready to graduate.
You're bringing back some memories for me. Yes,
Yeah.
I completely resonate with that. There were classes you love, and there are classes you're like, ugh, can I just be done with it? Like stats.
Mhm.
depending on if you love stats or not. Fair enough. Next question is about abuse, if that's okay. Do you have a history of any abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, financial, that I should know about?
Um, I don't even know how to answer that. I think
Mm,
like looking at my childhood, I don't remember my parents being around a lot, but they weren't
okay.
like abusive or neglectful, I would say. Um, and I don't know. I feel like in terms of finances, it's always like, we'll give you this if you blah 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 blah. So like
Mm,
tuition, for example, there seems to always be strings attached.
okay.
Um, and so that is becoming more and more challenging for me to navigate.
Okay. I appreciate knowing that. We could always come back to that as you and I get to know each other better. You said your parents weren't around a lot. Does that mean you were raised by somebody else or were you more on your own?
I mean, my dad worked a ton, so he was
Okay.
gone like before I woke up and pretty much until I went to bed. And then I just have like pretty big gaps in time where I don't
Hmm,
like remember my mom being there, but I know she was there, if that makes sense.
okay.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's not like
got
she
it.
was gone. And I wasn't raised by anyone else, but like who picked me up from school? I feel like a lot of times it was a babysitter, which I don't
Hmm,
understand because my mom didn't work. So yeah,
yeah,
I don't.
some like questions there.
Mhm.
No worries. I know this is kind of having you think about things maybe you haven't thought about in a while and
Yeah,
is
for
bringing up
sure.
some natural questions. So we can put a pin in that and come back to that if that feels important to your goals of
Okay.
therapy, of that
Mhm.
healthiest self. Any family history of mental health outside of you and the fact that you're wanting to come into therapy now? So things like anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, substance use, suicidal thoughts in the family.
Substance use, yes.
Okay.
Schizophrenia, no. Suicide stuff, yes.
Okay.
And that's really all I know. Yeah.
Gotcha. So for the substance use and the suicide stuff, was that a particular person? Was it multiple people in the family?
Substance use, honestly, I just feel like it's everywhere. And like, I don't know if you
Hmm.
see that with a lot of your clients or people around you, but I just feel like everyone in my family drinks. That's an
Hmm.
exaggeration. A lot of people in my family drink. And like all of our family gatherings are about drinking. And like now that I'm kind of in school and learning more about substance use and like what's normal and what's not,
Hmm.
and consequences to use, I've seen this in a new way of like, th this seems a little dysfunctional. Like,
Yeah.
um, so I don't think anyone in my family would admit to that. But
Hmm.
it is like there are patterns I'm noticing. And I think like I was really raised of like this work hard, play hard mentality. And so like in college, there was just kind of this culture of like, I partied 4 days a week and then I'd wake up and go to the library at 7 a.m.
Hmm.
And so now I'm kind of looking at that in a different light. And like that was really celebrated in my friend circle and by my family members. And now I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And then the suicide stuff is on my dad's side, but I don't know specifics.
Okay. Just know
Yeah.
that it's there, but not who or what circumstance.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Mhm.
So dad's side. For you right now, based on kind of the things you've shared, are you using any substances? It sounds like socially, alcohol, things like that, or what would you like me to know about that?
I've really taken a step back from alcohol. I would say that was a point of contention in my relationship because we would drink a lot and we would go
Mm,
out on the weekends. And then I very consciously was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
yeah.
And our whole friend group, that's what, we did on the weekends, besides skiing and stuff.
Mm,
And so, I mean, I haven't drank in over a year. Um, I don't necessarily think I had a problem, but just one of those things, like I was telling you, it just doesn't serve me. And
Yeah.
I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't like the
Hmm.
taste. I don't like the feeling. I do, and so it's like, okay, if I don't like it, like maybe I should stop.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it sounds like you actually aren't missing it either in the sense of it's not serving you that you've been able to have no alcohol for the last year and maybe you're feeling differently because of that.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any history of suicidal thoughts for you?
Mhm.
Past, present, currently?
Nope.
Any self-harm history for you?
Nope.
Have you ever been hospitalized for mental health, like a panic attack or things of that nature? Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. Got through the three hardest questions of this whole
Okay.
meeting.
Good. Yay.
Let's see. Cultural factors. So, anything you want me to know about your identities, spirituality, race, ethnicity, things that would be important to know about you as they relate to your life.
Um, I'm not religious, but I studied
Oh,
religion in college, and so it's like
oh,
very fascinating to me. And I read a lot, so sometimes I'll like pick things up from different traditions or cultures
mm,
um, that really resonate with me, but I wouldn't say I'm like religious by any
okay.
means. I don't practice anything. And then, white, straight, middle class.
Okay. I'm hearing work hard, play hard might be part of the cultural
Yeah.
factor from
Mhm.
earlier. So I put that down
Mhm.
here if that's
Yeah,
okay.
for sure.
Got it. And I know in my forms you put she, her pronouns. Just want to make sure I had those correct for you
Yep.
as we're going
Mhm.
forward. Thank
Yep.
you. Got it. Okay. Let's see. We're getting there. We've got all of our things. So as a student, are you working right now? Are you only full-time student, trying to do a lot of things?
I am a full-time student, and I work in the sense that I like babysit or nanny, as I'm available, and as needed. I kind of wanted to get through school as quickly as possible, and
Mhm.
so I'm not like working full-time right now.
Got it. Any military history? I know you mentioned the family moved around a lot, but there are lots of reasons people move, so I didn't want to assume that it was military. No
Nope, no
military. Okay.
military.
Okay. Any current legal involvement for you? Tickets, court, pending stuff? Okay,
Mm,
thank you. Are you taking any medications for your medical or mental health needs?
mm-mm.
Easy peasy. We got through that page just like that. All right. Um, actually getting close to the end. That's how efficient we are. Oh, my favorite section is actually the section that we still need to ask, which is I know when we connected, you've had therapy before. Tell me a little bit more about that experience. What worked for you? What didn't work for you? Things you liked, things you hated. That could be really helpful as we work together.
Yeah, I think I was in therapy when I was younger. I don't know why my mom like sent me, I guess.
Hmm.
I did not like her, and I felt like she believed everything my mom said and didn't believe
Mhm.
what I said. So I really didn't like going to her office. Kind of just had like this dreadful feeling of like, okay, I get to see
Yeah.
Dr. Corey again. This isn't going to be fun. And that was when I was really young, like fourth grade.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
and then I saw someone like very briefly in high school. And I guess you could say it was helpful because I could hear myself, kind of talk through situations and stuff like that. But I am now recognizing like I need someone to be more direct with me and hold me accountable while also like believing me.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Especially from that fourth grade self, not feeling believed or that the alignment was with mom. That makes a lot of sense. When it comes to thinking about the therapeutic things people would do, sounds like verbal processing was helpful where you could hear yourself say things out loud. So some talk therapy is okay. Has there been anything that you found online that you're interested in or have heard about in the therapy space that you're like, yeah, I'd give that a try?
I mean, I was reading on your website that you do EMDR, and
Mhm.
that just seems like such a foreign concept to me, even though I've like read about it. And so, going back to one of your first questions about the body, like I'm just wondering, like you say I'm living all up here, but is there stuff that like I need to work on that's not thinking and talking about?
Yeah. So EMDR might be one of those modalities you and I look at to see if it's a fit for the goals that you have for therapy. I'm definitely getting a sense of you're self aware and you know what you like. And it sounds like there are certain things that still need to be pulled apart and kind of looked at when it comes to like the lack of body sensation, even though you're a very active person, like those feel kind of disconnected, right? Even as
Mhm.
I reflect it
Yeah.
back to you. So EMDR could be something that would work and kind of fill that need of you're not really talking to me, you're doing some bilateral stimulation, which is probably why it feels a little mystical. uh,
Yeah.
and then, some things start to shift in the body, in the mind, and in your memories. So we can definitely talk more about that to see if it's a fit for you. But yeah, it's very popular online. So I'm not surprised at all that you saw it not only on my website, but might have seen it in other places as people talk about it a little more. So I'll just make a note here that we'll kind of look at EMDR as we get to know each other better and see if that's a fit. My favorite question to ask new clients is how will I know if I've pissed you off?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you would know.
That's important for me to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of just like pushed through lots of different like
Mm-hmm.
stressful experiences and discomfort in my life. And so I guess like that's definitely one of the patterns to help me with is to like,
Mm-hmm.
why would I go to therapy with someone if they piss me off?
Well, it's that. And the reason for this question, Ashley, is that this is a human connection, right? I'm a professional, I'm your therapist, we're going to have a professional relationship, but there will still be times, human to human, that something might come out and not land well, or I might offend you. And so this question is twofold in just recognizing what are your warning signs that you're angry or disconnecting. Some clients, it's,
Yeah.
I'm pissed off and I'm not talking anymore, my face goes flat, but for other clients, it might be like you would never know, which is something I needed to hear you say out loud. This might be your coping style of I don't say anything, I'll just ghost you and never come back. So that is part of the reason I asked that question. The other part is really just authenticity of you being able to say, could I change that? If you're like, my go to is to just push through, maybe therapy is now a chance to lean up against that growth edge and say, well, what would it be
Yeah.
like to tell me? What if you like
Mhm.
to say you're irritating me or I don't
Yeah.
agree with that? So, in working with perfectionists and people pleasers, that is a goal for them to
Mhm.
be like, I'm not just going to go with the flow. I'm not just going to push
Yeah, for
through,
sure. For sure.
which is why I like to take the temperature on that before we even get into the heavy work to
Mhm.
be like, how will I know if I've
Yeah.
struck a nerve there? So, hopefully, that question was okay to ask as we're getting to know each
Yeah,
other.
definitely.
Just for that permission of like, I'm human, you're human. You're also allowed to be like, no, thank you. I'm getting angry. So that's what that question is really about. So thanks for answering that. Okay. Any other substance use? You said alcohol has been off the table. Do you smoke? Do you use marijuana? Anything else that you want me to know about?
I don't smoke. I've smoked weed in the past and it was like a one and done for me. Didn't
Okay.
like it. I've been around substances, but um never really picked it up.
Okay. Gotcha. When it comes back to the stress, just wanted to tease this out a little bit as we're looking at the end of the questions that I have for you. So, stress, you said it's impacting multiple parts of your life. Is it impacting sleep, relationships? Tell me a little bit more. I'm trying to get a sense of how this is impacting you right now.
Yeah, I would say with school, it's definitely like, ugh, I don't want to do that. I'm too stressed to even start. And I'm finding myself like procrastinating, even though I'm not a procrastinator. And so then that stresses me out. I'm like not getting through my
Yeah.
to-do. Um,
Mhm.
and then in terms of, I think in terms of like, it doesn't necessarily impact my friendships, but I like being with people. I like trying new restaurants. And so I schedule a bunch of stuff. And then because I schedule a bunch of stuff that is mostly fun
Mm,
or necessary, like I'm overwhelming myself and I don't know how to not do that.
okay.
Um, and then I think in terms of the like relationship that just ended, like I just stayed too long. Like I stayed
Mm,
probably 6 or 9 months too long. Like looking back, it's interesting that you're saying like I want you to feel comfortable telling me that you're angry. Like that really resonates with me because I'm looking back at these moments with this guy where
mm,
I should have said, I'm angry or that hurt me or I don't want to be here,
mhm,
in this space with you right now. Um, so I think that's how it stressed me out in that relationship is I was like staying way too long. Um, and that overwhelmed me because I
okay.
wanted the relationship to end and I knew it
Mhm,
would, and yet I stayed. And so there was just this like I was so overwhelmed by like going back and forth with myself of like, is today the day? Is tomorrow the day? Like it should have been
mm.
yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds exhausting. Like the
Yeah,
whole
I
idea of that is
now,
exhausting.
yeah.
Yeah, so I wrote down words like overextended, overwhelmed, worry, anxiety. So I definitely think I'm getting a clear picture of what your experience is in this moment with the goal of a healthier self, right? That's kind of what I wrote down for us. So yeah, questions you have for me before I kind of recap what we've talked about? Anything I can answer about my style? I know I've talked a lot about what I do in the consult call before you schedule the intake, but any burning questions you have for me as we're looking at the questions today?
I think, when we spoke on the phone, you mentioned you do have more of a direct style. And now that I see you
Mm-hmm.
face to face, I'm definitely getting that. And I'm
Sure.
feeling a little like I really need that and want that, but I'm a little like, ooh, too about it. Um, so I guess like if I'm showing a pattern and like what are you gonna say like you're showing the pattern and you want me to tell you to stop the pattern, like what exactly does
Mm.
directness look like if I'm trying to change but I'm not changing?
Yeah, I really appreciate this question. So, as you get to know me better, you'll know that I'm a little goofy. I use humor a lot with clients to just help them feel seen and heard and appreciated. And so, even in my directness, I'm usually pretty playful. So, I'm not going to be like yelling at you. I'm not your mom. I'm not a parent figure. We're working alongside each other. So, the imagery I tend to give clients is imagine we're in pitch blackness. There's a bunch of potholes on the path in front of us. You have the flashlight. I'm just alongside you trying to illuminate the barriers, right? The holes, the divots, the places you're going to trip yourself up. So I'm not driving. I'm not holding the flashlight. You are. And so that is really the therapeutic style for me is like I'm an ally, I'm alongside you, but I'm not pushing you, I'm not pulling you. I'm going at the pace that you want to go at. So that directness is going to come out that way of like maybe it'll be a pointed question here and there. Maybe it'll be like, what are you noticing? But it's not going to be you're doing this wrong. Like that doesn't feel therapeutically helpful to shame someone and to change. That's not my
Yeah.
style at all. And gosh, I hope most therapists that wouldn't be their style as I say that out loud. Uh, so I tend to illuminate things. I might be like, hey, can you move this metaphorical flashlight over here for a second and take a look at this pothole? But you're still the one deciding what that means for you, if that means change or not, and at what pace. Is that
Okay.
helpful?
Yeah, that's very helpful.
I tend to use a lot of metaphors, a lot of analogies. If you're a visual learner, you might like that. If you don't,
Yes.
that's okay
Yes.
too. I know in our consult call, I like to give homework so you have some momentum between our meetings that we have together. So if you're still open to that, homework is
Sure.
not heavy or long. It's usually just a pointed thing to kind of focus that flashlight on. And that's part of
Okay.
the style too. How's
Okay.
that sound?
Sounds good. Mhm.
Awesome. Throughout the process, regardless, I want you to feel like you can give me feedback. This is about you. This is your therapeutic experience. So if something's working, great. And if something's not working, I also want to hear that from you. I mentioned in our first call, like I'm not going to keep going over one little intervention if it's not working for you. Like we're not going to keep doing something that's not effective. So rather have your feedback in any stage
Okay.
of the process of what's working and what isn't. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Awesome. So, Ashley, what I'm hearing with our work together is we have this overarching goal of a healthier version of you, healthiest you after the breakup, some ongoing anxiety and worry that you're having, the pressure of school, a little bit of burnout. I'm hearing some stress responses, not necessarily being completely in tune with your body, which is also a coping skill. I want to say again, like that's normal. And so I think there's plenty of things that we can work on together that would make you feel healthier.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, with my specialty of perfectionism, I think I can speak your language in that way of pressure, perfectionism,
Sure.
people pleasing, but hopefully get you to a place where you're not feeling so overextended and overwhelmed. Things
Yeah.
like some healthier boundaries around commitments, some
Mhm.
work life harmony stuff, and just some overall body awareness that might make you feel better in your skin.
Okay,
What are your
great.
thoughts on that?
That sounds good. That's why I'm here.
Awesome. Great. So I will send this document that I took all my notes on to you to have you review it, make sure I got everything correctly, that I captured it accurately to your experience. And that just kind of serves as the first starting place as we go into the work. Any final questions for me before we schedule, if that feels like a next best step?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. And so let's time out the video here for a second and say to our viewers, this is where I would normally reassure, hey, I think we have a lot of great things we could do together. Can't wait to work with you. Let's get you on the calendar. So excited, right? This last thing that I just said is the missing piece for a lot of my students when they're like, yep, I got through all the intake paperwork, all of it. And then I'm like, yep, I'll see you on Tuesday. And the client's like, can you help me? Like, are we
Yeah.
a fit?
hmm
So to verbalize, I'm excited to work with you. I have some ideas for you. I can't wait to get started is something clients truly want to hear if it's authentic, because they've just opened up this wound to tell you all the answers to your invasive questions. And they just want to know, are we good? Is this going to work? So that is the piece from the beginning of this video. If you've watched it all the way to this point,
Yeah.
that is the thing that's missing for a lot of our colleagues as they go, yep, I'll see you next week. But they don't say, I'm excited. I have ideas. Let's jump in. Ashley, what would you add to how you might approach an intake? Actually, let's start with what was this experience like for you as a client? Throw it in
Um,
this video.
I think it flowed well as a
Uh-huh.
client. My style is pretty similar to yours, where I kind of let the client drive, and usually it's me flipping back and forth because we don't go linearly. And I think that's something a lot of students or new therapists struggle with. Like they want to
Mm-hmm.
go in their order and then they forget that they've already covered that. And then the client's
Yep.
like, I already told you that. So I think that's the skill a lot of people learn over time, is
Mm-hmm.
to just kind of let the client go and then intervene when you need to know specific pieces of information or details. And I mean, I like that you continually circled back to, okay, you're here for the overwhelmed, this worry, this stress.
Yeah.
Because I think it's easy for us to go squirrel, 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 squirrel. Like there's this symptom and this symptom. And
Yeah.
the reason I'm here, I stated. And so, how do we continually hear the client and focus on what they want to work on and not focus on things that might be clinically relevant or we might want to work on, but they're not here to work on with us?
Yeah. And that was our previous video of like when we start to write treatment plans, why would this show up if the client's saying, I'm not focused on that. I'm not focused on alcohol. I haven't drank in a year. I'm not
Mhm.
focused on the relationship because it ended. I'm here to be healthy. And then like,
Mhm.
how do we make that measurable? Right. So like you said, it's
Right.
an art form to get all the info we need in this first meeting to at least start with a diagnosis that we feel like fits the client, knowing that it will probably be updated as we get to know them more.
Yeah.
This interview was maybe 40 minutes, if that, right? So, like, for some people, it would take the whole hour or an hour and a half. The client didn't report trauma or anything where I'd want to like sit in that a little bit longer. But in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking about trauma, right? Where like I wrote down
Right.
attachment, right? I'm like some
Yes.
attachment stuff here
Yeah.
with mom. Where was mom? And things like that. And so, something else we can emphasize, Ashley and I are both Medicaid providers. So our assessment is pretty lengthy in the sense of it's like 10 pages with a lot of white space.
Right.
And the client does look at this and they do sign it. And so there's a lot of just like me jotting a few words or a sentence here or there to keep the pace, but also because I don't want to over document what the client is saying as I'm just getting to know them and knowing that
Mhm.
I can continue to build that rapport and come back to that in the first true therapy session.
Right.
So for my students, don't write a novel. You don't have time for that. you do have time to jot a few things down that will cue up your memory when you see the client again and actually start that work. Final thoughts, Ashley, on intakes with clients and flow.
I think just make sure it's about the client, follow their pace, try to read them, don't go too deep where they're not ready to go. I try to not ask the same question twice, because if they've already answered or if they give me an indicator I don't want to go there, then I need to honor that. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what trips up new clinicians as well, is like the client didn't answer this question, and that's okay. Like that can be documented. Client did not
Yeah,
answer. Therapist will revisit.
that's
And
right.
so, like, yes, there's audit standards and documentation standards, and we're here for the client ultimately. And so, how do we continually remember this is a relationship, like you said, this is a dialogue, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, this is a collaborative interview process. Um, and I love what you said about, giving me permission of like, oh, I don't like that. I think that is something clients definitely need to know up front. And, we should be telling clients our style and our modalities up front as well, which I know you do in that consult call.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but by the time you get to the end of the intake, you should know how you're going to work with this client. And if you
Right.
can't, you need to be able to verbalize that. Maybe not in the moment, but at some point prior to scheduling or,
Yeah, don't drop the
not
bomb at the
scheduling.
end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, well, so here are some referrals, which will happen. There will be clients who are
Yeah,
not a good
it
fit.
happens. Mhm.
It gets clear from the phone call to being in front of you, telehealth or in person, that that might not always be a fit. But yeah, like just some like structural things of like lighting a folio on my face to help build trust with a client on telehealth. I narrated what I was doing with writing below. I mean, I have glasses so people can see my light ring, but like for clients who are like, what is she doing right now? What is she writing? Really helpful students who are watching this to narrate like this is what I'm doing, this is what's coming next, so that they understand that you're not disconnected, you're not bored, you're listening. To
Right.
continue to look through that camera is a big part of telehealth as well. So yeah, lots of thoughts here. This is just one of many examples of an intake session. This was a request of one of my students in particular. I was happy to be able to do this with Ashley. I tend to do this in real time with students, and now it's forever cemented going to be on the
Yes.
YouTube channel. So we'll see if this ages well or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my favorite question of the whole interview process is how will I know if I pissed you off? And I know that surprised you. You didn't know that was coming. I
No, I
purposely didn't
didn't.
tell you it was coming. And the client's reactions are pretty authentic to yours, which is, oh, wow, I didn't realize that was a question, but I'm okay with it. Like, I appreciate that you asked me, how will I know? Um, that's my nugget for all of you as a mental health
Like
leader is like, ask the question. You're going to learn something, whether it's I'm going to ghost you, I'm not going to show you a damn thing, or I'm going to tell you straight to your face, I'm unhappy.
yeah.
All of which is useful as a clinician. So, Ashley, thank you again for the time to do this video with me. I always appreciate you and look forward to sharing this with our community. Thank you again.